Good, good, good,
Good.
good, good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Hey, I was wondering how many people
Good,
view
good.
these? Good.
It depends on the
Good to
content of
good to
the
see you.
um anywhere from sometimes we get 1,800 views, sometimes we get four. So I mean,
Right
it all
on.
depends. Yeah, yeah.
I get it.
Um, if we
It's
trend,
really good to see you again. What's it been? 5 years?
oh yeah, it's easily been 5 years. Yeah, easily 5 years. Yeah, I think if we trend this on um like Instagram, usually we get like the last one I did, golly, who was it? It was Brad Taylor. I think that one got like 6,000 views. So yeah, we'll just make this one super fun. We'll
So
be
when
quick. Yeah.
when will it come out?
I'll probably post this next week.
Great. Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
got you downloaded. I mean, you're on my podcast, so I can just look it up.
Yeah, perfect. Good, 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 good. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. I mean, I'm already streaming this, so some people that are plugging in and viewing are probably going, "What the heck is going on?" So,
Okay.
yeah, it's all good. But for those who don't know who Scott Wealing is, Scott and I met years ago. And first of all, I just want to welcome everybody to the Military Wire. And as you guys know, this is where we bring on amazing individuals who have served this country in uniform, who have done some amazing stuff for our country, but more importantly, they've gone after service to do some even more incredible things. So really breathing into that whole America's greatest asset piece. So for those of you who don't know who Scott is the CEO of Briggs Core Dynamics, and that specializes in high-level training for civilians, law enforcement, and non-government organizations. I'm going to read some of your bio, Scott, because it's so impressive. Um, your organization, you offer from basic to advanced levels, covering such as rifle marksmanship, active shooter response training, in-home defense, tactical casualty training. And then your background, former Army Ranger, long-range surveillance for 15 years, over 2,600 days deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan. Thank you for that. Um, Boy, your surveillance leadership courses, airborne air assault, survival, tracking, counter tracking, and then you served protective agent for Paul Brenner during his term as ambassador in Iraq. So, and then, oh my gosh, I mean, I could keep going about your experience. I mean, here's the bottom line, guys. Scott it knows what's going on in the country. He knows what we need to do from a tactical and even keeping our head on a swivel level, that whole staying frosty piece. So we're going to dive into that. So, Scott, I'm going to shut up and just welcome you first. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, 100%. So I know you're traveling. We'll keep this quick but I want this to be high impact and high value. I want to talk about mentorship in high risk environments because I think there's a lot going on in this country. We see what's going on at the border. We see what's going on internationally. We see a lot of things going geopolitical. So share with us a little bit about your mentorship. How has mentorship shaped your approach in like high risk military and protective operations, and why you think it's important to develop those skills, those effective leadership skills for today in our present day environment. And it,
Well, I'm going to go backwards. I'll start close. We know that leadership is very important because if we have strong leaders, then our enemies don't dare do what they do. And as you can see, with the awesome withdrawal from Afghanistan, showed
yeah,
what poor leadership we have, and that emboldens everybody else to do what they were going to do. And it happened during Obama's administration as well. The whole Benghazi thing, the 13 Hours movie is based on
yeah,
it. And that night, over 20 U.S. embassies and consulates were attacked. That's never happened in the history of the United States. I wasn't in Benghazi. I was in Kabul, Afghanistan, and we had 200 coming our way. So I was sitting next to a full bird colonel, and he's like, "This has never happened before," and
mm,
it just shows what weak leadership is. But back on the mentor thing, that's pretty much what our podcast was about last time. And I think it starts off as a young man. If you put yourself, if you look up to someone and you want to be like them and you pick them as your mentor, that's starting off as a young man or young woman. That is the best decision you can make, right? They're positive influence. They're not getting you in trouble, and you're moving towards a direction to the next chapter. And in that next chapter, I guess for me, and I will say that my father.
Yeah, we lost you, Scott. We lost you just a little bit.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we lost you a little bit. You went through a dead zone or something. So go ahead and repeat that.
From what part? I'm sorry.
Yeah, from the mentorship, the importance of having mentorship as a young man or woman. So
Okay. Yeah. It's the smartest decision you can make when you're young, because you put yourself in a position, hey, I look up to this person, they're a positive influence, and it drives you towards the next positive thing, which for me, my father was my first mentor. Then when I got in the military, I looked around and I saw some guys that I didn't want to hang out with, right? And I saw
yeah,
some guys that were doing some pretty cool stuff. I'm like, hey, I want to be like one of those guys. So I picked one of those guys. And then when I started contracting, even with the agency as a GRS agent, I looked around and they're, you know, what do they say? 10% of any field, there's some crappy people, I guess is the way to say it. But I mean, even in special operations, you have the cream of the crop up here, and then you have some that are just doing what they got to do to get by. I mean, they're
yeah,
still studs. It's a higher, I guess it's a higher percentage of the lowest 10%, but still they're there. And you look around and you pick the one that you want to be like, and maybe, I don't know, I always learn through humor. So I picked some wise ass maybe, but he's still there and he's very good leader. And that's kind of how I lead, through humor a little bit. And I angle that way. So in a really short time, that's kind of recapping what we talked about on our last podcast, which was, I don't know, over 5 years ago, I guess, that you said.
man,
Yeah.
it's crazy, crazy. Well, and I think you touched on something, and we need to break that down a little bit. Is there's another colonel friend of mine. He talks about red, yellow, and green people, right? And you kind of reference that a little bit. Green people are that top 10%, right? And you look in your life and say, what people in my life are green people? These are people that add value. I add value to them. We lift each other up. We keep each other accountable. These are green people in my life. Yellow people are the margins, right? And red people, a
Yep.
lot of people have a lot of red people in their life, right? These are oxygen suckers. These are people that bring you down. These are people that take, not give. So, we got to be cautious on who we have in our life. And, even as adults, it's so important on the mentorship piece. So I appreciate you saying that. I mean, that goes right in line with what you're talking about. I want to move over to transition because Sky, you know that we work a lot on transition. We're going from mission, purpose, identity, clear mission, purpose, identity when we're in the military. Then we transition out, and all of a sudden we kind of go into this no man's land where nobody's really talking about it, right? We're kind of drifting. And if we've served in uniform, we understand what it is, and then we get into an environment where, it's foreign almost. So talk to me a little bit about how you took your military training and had clear sense of mission, purpose, identity, and moved it into the civilian marketplace. What did you do? Because Briggs Dynamics is doing some pretty amazing things, but was that a struggle for you, number one? And if so, how did you move out of the suck, essentially? How did you stop walking in the
Yeah. Well, I guess I was lucky because I moved right from the military into contracting, and everybody's got the same mentality. Now,
yeah,
I learned I learned to talk Marine. I wasn't a Marine, so there's a little bit of that. But once I was done with that, I had to have I got sent home from Afghanistan. I had to have some surgery on my knee, and I was recovering from surgery. And a buddy of mine who was doing protection for high net worth families stateside. He said, "Hey, while you're recovering, you want to work for us?" I said, "Sure." Well, I was a contract agent for them, so I would be there 3 weeks. And then my wife, she was in Indiana. So I would be with the people I was protecting for 3 weeks, Indiana for a week and a half. And then my kids, now they were in high school or they were getting there. They were out in Arizona. So then I'd spend a week and a half out there, and then I'd go back to do protection for 3 weeks. And I did that
Mm.
for a year. And that was a little bit of a struggle bus. And my wife knew it. And I told her, I said, I'm burnt out. I can't keep doing this. And again, mentor, I
Yeah.
think your partner is a great mentor and she's smarter than me. She's driving right now.
Oh,
So
nice.
she said, well, you have some property in Indiana. Why don't you open a gun range?
Mm.
So I was like, you know what? We went to the neighbor with her and we talked to him. And then I went to the sheriff. I said, here's who I am. I grew up here and here's what I want to do. And he said, well, I'll make you a reserve deputy. And then he sent me to all the leadership training for firearms instructor, pistol, rifle, and building course curriculums and stuff like that. So I went through all that. And what that did, it set up a nice little base where if any law enforcement would come to my range, they would get credit for their training hours. It's not like they're learning something when they're training, but they also get their required time in
Yeah.
training. So that set me up real nice back in the day. So I started expanding. Of course, civilians is a huge thing. We've in the past, well, since I spoke to you last, we've expanded the range. We've got 3 more bays on the main range. We opened a 600-yard range, which was
Oh,
huge for the
wow.
civilian and law enforcement side. I have a lot of military guys come out there as well. And we have, unfortunately, active shooter training has
Mm.
become paramount in some, even churches. I deal a lot with
Yeah.
churches. And I'm very fortunate. And expanding the range, I reached out because what you do when you deploy 7 months a year for 10 years is you do a lot of networking. You work with different people. And we've expanded into having guest instructors from all over the U.S. come in. And I'm very fortunate this year to have my old boss,
Mm.
Bob Perez, or I'm sorry, we always called him Ninja overseas, but he's a really good guy, and he'll be in there. And then Tactical Performance Center comes every year. The guys from Benghazi have been training there for years. We have pararescue men now that teach the TAC Med side of it or TECC side of it. I've got a great SF sniper that does all my sniper instruction or long distance AR and intro to long range shooting stuff. Daniel Shaw will be coming with his buddy Ryan Stevens this year. And it's not only shooting, but it's combatives too.
Yeah.
And then we're topping the year off with Freddie Asuna from Greenside Training. And he's one of the world's best trackers, written books on it,
Wow.
phenomenal stuff. So it's not all about shooting, it's about medical and it's about tracking. And I'm very fortunate. I can't say that enough to have those guys support me. And we also have a lot of special operations guys that live close to the range that, like, I'm coming back from Florida right now, and they were teaching this weekend for me. It's just works really well for everybody. But we've also expanded that into when we go into a school or a church and we do training for the staff or law enforcement that would respond to that school or church. A lot of churches have their own security teams now. We come
Yeah.
with answers because schools will lock down, and every school, almost every school I've ever been into, they have metal door frame and a glass window. If you look at the Nashville shooter, that door was locked.
Yeah.
That shooter just broke the window and came in. We've partnered with Safe Haven Defense. It's a laminate that goes on the window, and it'll stop pistol rounds from coming in. And but if there's a school resource officer inside, their bullets can go out and extinguish the threat.
Wow.
So it's like Gore-Tex for bullets, right? It'll
Yeah.
whip the sweat
Yeah.
away, but it won't let the
Yep.
rain in.
Yeah.
That's just an easy way to explain it. And we put that, I think Safe Haven's put it in over 300 schools. I've done courthouses, churches. So it's a great product. And then you have the problem of preschoolers or, maybe handicapped students that you really can't move them outside if you wanted to. So we partnered with Wing. Was it? Let me look. I made some notes for this. Wingstop. No, that's not right. That's a restaurant. Wing Shield. There it is.
Yeah.
And it's a big whiteboard. The teacher can use it to put homework on or whatever. But if there's a threat, it's on wheels. It goes right to the door. An 8-year-old can do this. There's a video on their website. An 8-year-old putting this into action. She locks the wheels. She presses this bar, and it'll stop AK-47, AR-15 rounds coming in, and
Wow.
it makes that room into a hard room. So we don't only come with like training, we come with solutions for these various problems. And I've partnered with these people. Infidel Body Armor is another great company that I've been with for years, and they've donated a lot to EMS paramedics that may have to go into maybe not a hot zone, but a warm zone in a school where they're still clearing rooms. Good friend Todd Langley, and he owns Crisis Response Leadership Training and or Crisis Response Leader Training. And what he does, it's a computer-based system for leadership, and you could send him the schematics of your school. He builds them in the computer, and then he will do a turn-based scenario where, okay, you got one officer arriving. Maybe he's got a mass casualty kit in his trunk, and you can put all that stuff on him. And what would you have him do? And at the end, it spits out the best practices for that incident.
Wow.
So it's an incredible tool. I'm up north in Indiana, and in the wintertime, a lot of people don't like coming to the range, but you can do this stuff in the classroom, and it keeps people's mind engaged, because just being aware of the situation is huge. And it's part of we do preparedness, awareness, and then the response. It's all the way through. And it's
I love
taken up
that
a lot of
stuff.
my time.
Yeah, I love that.
But
You know
it's
what?
worth it.
Well, I think what you're mentioning too is you took your expertise and your skills, and then you leveraged that into the marketplace. Um, and I think that's an important message for those who are getting out, is like, what is at your core? Like, what drives you? What pulls your head off the pillow in the morning, gets you up, and still adds value, right? So that you're not, drowning your sorrows in a bottle, wondering what the heck am I supposed to be doing? I mean, there's got to be something. And I think that you're a great example of that, is leveraging your skills and ability to not only feed your own soul, but to benefit and feed others. And I think that's a pretty powerful statement, that we need to do the work before we get out to understand where we're going after we get out.
Yes. Now, 30 years ago, if you're a Ranger getting out of the military, what would you do? I mean, there's no need for a guy walking around the block with a gun or a rifle, and so you were very limited. But now, just the world circumstances, things have really opened up, and those skills become valuable to a lot of people.
Yeah, that's really good. I want to wrap this up. I want to talk, if there was one bit of advice you would give those who are getting ready to get out, you work with them. I mean, so what is that one thing you're like, okay, guys, just focus on this one thing? It's a general statement, I know, but what would that be? Like, do this. What is that?
To be honest with you, I'm working with this veteran right now, and he very depressed. He's going through a lot of stuff, and he's like, I feel like just screw it. I just eat a bullet. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, take that, screw it, and turn it around. You know, even if you don't succeed at something, say, screw it. I'm going to do it no matter what. If I
Yeah.
don't succeed, then I can try something else. It's that it's not an easy button. It's a screw it button. You know, you hit it and you're just like, hey, no matter what happens, at least I'm trying to do something positive.
Yeah. 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 I think that's I call it that you, right? So if you could be that most amazing you, what does that you look like? You might not be there yet, but if you were, what would that you do? And that you would
Right.
be something significant, right? So I love the screw it button though. That's good. That's yeah.
I'm gonna use that you.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. It really is. I mean, we've got this image of who we want to be. So who is that guy and what would that guy do or that woman do? So Scott, tell us, wrap it up with how do people find you? How do they visit your company? How do they take part in what you offer to the world? Oh, you're going through a dead zone. We'll give it a moment. We'll give it a moment so
Okay.
you can
Tell me
get.
when.
You're still going through that dead zone, brother. Almost there, I hope.
Hmm.
Almost. I think.
How are
Go
we now?
ahead. Yeah, you're
How
good.
are we now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a weekly newsletter that comes out that you can keep up to date on the training and all the guest instructors coming in. It's at you can subscribe on trainbcd like Bravo Charlie Delta.com or go to briggscoredynamics.com. And it's definitely worth a Google. And that's how we get everything out that people need to hear about. And we even put some humor in there too.
I love it. I love it. Well, Scott, we'll let you keep traveling wherever you're going, back to Illinois, and we'll have you back on the show. We'll get you firmly grounded, and then next time we'll get you back on the show. It won't be 5 years, brother. It'll be a lot sooner than that. And I just want to say thanks for taking the time.
All right. That sounds great.
All right, brother.
Thanks, Michael.
You betcha. Be well, be blessed.